Today we are joined by General Volodimir Havrilov, a senior commander in the Ukrainian Armed Forces. General Havrilov has played a significant role in Ukraine's military strategies amid the ongoing conflict with Russia. With extensive experience in both conventional and modern warfare, he provides valuable insights into Ukraine's defense efforts, international alliances, and the broader geopolitical implications of the conflict. In this interview, General Havrilov will discuss the current state of military operations, the challenges Ukraine faces on the battlefield, and the prospects for peace. His perspectives are crucial for understanding Ukraine's position and the factors influencing the search for a resolution to the conflict as soon as possible, of course. Please welcome General Volodimir Havrilov. Thank you so much, General, for taking your time and being here with us today.
Thank you.
General, I would want to ask you, because I read your past interviews, and in the past you have declared that the Ukrainian people do not want negotiations with Russia. Do you believe it is realistic to achieve a lasting peace without compromises from both sides? Or if not, what alternatives do you see as a solution for this case?
First of all, I would like just to repeat that the mood in the civil society of Ukraine is about no deal with Russia concerning our territories. It's about territorial integrity. Of course, it doesn't correspond to the Russian Putin expectation about that, because they see the victory in this war with the change, as they think, a kind of regime in Kiev, and all, just putting Ukraine out of NATO or the end everything. So we have to demonstrate as a country, as a nation, that we are ready to fight, we are ready to liberate our territories, and there is no way for military solution for Russia to move Ukraine from its path to the European integration in NATO. Now the ball is on the table in Russia, in Moscow, so they have to decide what to do, because they are also exhausted in this war. They don't have resources to continue in this war. They still have no support, and they will never have support from majority of the countries in the world. They have to, from this disparity, to ask countries like North Korea to support them. All these signs point to the direction that Russia inevitably has to decide for themselves what to do with that conflict. How to explain to their people what is the kind of solution, what is a kind of half victorious solution in this war. So, but no way just to have any deals with them, because we understand if you have a kind of deal with that country, in 10, 15 years, you will see them expanding once again to the territories, not only of Ukraine, but also to the countries next to Ukraine. And that's why our fight there is not only for Ukraine, it's also for European values and European countries.
General, we see that in the United States there have been elections. President Donald Trump was re-elected as the President of the United States. And now we see that the rhetoric that President Donald Trump is having is that their focus is rather on the attention on the threat by China rather than Russia, because we also know that the relationship between Donald Trump and Putin is quite a good one compared to other leaders of the world. How do you perceive the strategic alignment in the case that the support from the United States might cease to exist compared to how it was when the Democrats were in charge?
The support for Ukraine in the United States is this not because of somebody is in power, because there's a huge understanding in the society. And we have bipartisan support in the Congress, both parties. Doesn't matter, Democrats or Republicans. They understand that Ukraine is fighting for freedoms, not only of the country, but others. And there is a general understanding of necessity to support Ukraine in this. The conversation is always about the volumes of assistance, the number of items to be sent to Ukraine, about resources, money, and how to raise up an alliance in Europe with NATO to do the same. Trump, as a president, yes, he has his personal vision on that, and his team will formulate, I think, in next month or two, so-called vision and roadmap for deconflicting or maybe just to stop this war. But nevertheless, they have to keep in mind, first, the attitude of Ukrainian civil society and the influence of this attitude to the political leadership in Ukraine with regard to any kind of deals with Russia and to stop or to frozen this war. And also they have to look and follow attentively the moods in the society in the United States and Congress about that. So from those appointments which we see now, we are quite confident that support of Ukraine will continue. We will see maybe some change in the format of this support, about specific items and volumes. But it's not about personalities in the United States. It's about full understanding of everybody.
Course, but the messages were quite clear. Donald Trump said, for example, for instance, for NATO countries such as Romania, if you don't allocate more from the GDP to NATO, then NATO will not protect you anymore. Maybe even the United States will get out of NATO, which is an immense threat for the NATO allied countries. Let's not forget that Donald Trump also said that Volodymyr Zelensky is in part at fault for starting the conflict. Donald Trump said that. Of course, it raised a lot of suspicions and of questions regarding Donald Trump's position in the war. He also said that in the first days of coming back at the White House, he will stop the conflict by negotiating with Putin, and that means negotiation might mean seizing a part of the territory. So do you entrust yourself in Donald Trump's ability to end the war or end it at your terms, at Ukraine's terms?
I know about this rhetoric which presented during the presidential campaign. It's always sometimes of populist oriented. Nevertheless, not only the president of the United States is the final decision maker. Yes, formally he has to decide, but based upon advice and the analysis of his team, which is a quite interesting team, is assembling now. The comments you mentioned, his comments, they may be 1 or 2 years old. So we will see a little bit new personality in 2 months in Washington, D.C. Given his conclusion from his first presidency in 2016-2020. And at the time I was in D.C., in Washington, D.C. as a defense attaché, so I worked together with his team at that time. And so I know the specifics of the decision making. So I'm very confident that in a new presidency starting in January 20, we will see the president who will keep in mind his previous mistakes, and he will be surrounded by people who can advise him in the right way what is in the interest of United States, but not in some person.
Also, the term axis of evil is often used in geopolitical rhetoric. How do you define this axis in the current geopolitical context? And what strategies does Ukraine have or propose to counter in the influence of those hostile global actors?
For us, there is now the only evil is a Putin regime. And all countries who is trying to attract to his course, for us is quite non-friendly as minimum countries. We are not talking about Axis and others, because Russia is also very desperate to find any kind of partners in this war, to get the support from countries not like North Korea, which is not very pleasant for image of Russia, but maybe more from China, and China is not going to do that. They're going to keep some very moderate. It's about Iran, which Russia is trying also to use with the missile technologies and others in exchange for something. But the set of the countries is so small, it's so limited for Russia. So it's not about the axis. It is about desperate country trying to find somebody to be this axis. So we are not very worried about that. We are more worried about the mindset of Putin himself and his team.
And how far do you think that Putin might go in the context of today, when you even said at the beginning that they're also seizing this fight because they are tired from this fight?
They're in a very desperate situation. They become hostages of the Putin's ambition to restore the Russian Empire, or the Soviet-type empire. And for him, Ukraine is a real nightmare in this scenario, because without Ukraine, as once Zbigniew Brzezinski said, without Ukraine, Russia ceases to be Eurasian empire. So for them, any ambition to restore something similar to Soviet Union without Ukraine is just nonsense. That's why it's not about NATO expansion, not about something else. It's about to stop existence of Ukraine as a free country with European values which contradict to the mindset of Putin. And we expect that his next movement will be related to some kind of chaotic decisions, trying to find ad hoc, very fast solutions to some kind of problems they will face immediately soon, related to economy, related to the mood of the population in Russia, related to the results of the events in the United States. They have to digest, to understand what to do. They understand that if no success in Ukraine, the next problem will rise in Moscow. The next problem will rise with the destiny of Russia as a country. So that's the scenario they're afraid of now. And they don't have a medicine. They don't know solution what is next. They still hope that there will be a miracle. One day, somebody will be killed, somebody will disappear, and they will be in adventurous position. But it's not the case. We should demonstrate them that the only way to stop this war is get out of the territory of Ukraine, to guarantee our sovereignty, and concentrate on the transformation of Russia inside the Russia. They are not ready for that, so we'll see.
Also, do you think that there will be a specific country that would mediate this position of peace between Ukraine and Russia? Which country do you think would mediate the peace treaty?
There are now a number of countries who are proposing the service for that. And in China, for example, they have a special ambassador assigned to that for traveling back and forth.
Well, let's not forget China's position in this whole conflict.
Yes, there are also some proposals from other third countries. Today, during my driving here, I read about the conversation between German Prime Minister Scholz and Putin, telephone conversation. So everybody is ready to contribute with something. But nevertheless, we have a position of Putin. He preferred to stay on the demands of Russia that Ukraine should rid off of the territories which are already occupied, rid off of the ambition to be a member of the NATO and others which are not acceptable to us. But for him, there is no choice to say something else, because once again, he's a hostage of his very stupid plan to make Ukraine under his control through force.
Given the shifts in political positions in many countries in Europe, including in Romania, we have elections in just a week. We saw what happened in the Republic of Moldova, where a Russian-loved candidate was about to take the presidency of the Republic of Moldova. Even in Romania, there are suspicions of Russian infiltration in the elections, presidential elections. Does Ukraine start to lose hope in the democratic value and the future protectiveness of Ukraine, since there's a major political shift, including in Georgia, where a pro-Russian president and parliament has won?
You know, when the invasion started in 22, I was in my office at the time, early in the morning. We had limited support at all from everybody. Americans, they just informed us on the eve that they have to leave according to the order from DOD, from the White House, because they know that Russia will cross the border. So we understood that we have to face the aggressor without not clear position of Europe and United States in terms of the material support. Yes, of course, mentally, with mindset, they're with us. We've got a lot of verbal support and other things, sanctions, something else. But everybody was expecting what is going to be in Ukraine, how the people, how the government, how the leadership will perform and what they're going to do. And it took 1 and more month before some countries started to raise up with understanding, including the United States, that it's all serious. Ukraine is going to fight to defend its territory with all available resources and instruments. And only after that we started to receive a lot of support from the United States and other big countries. That's why for us, for Ukraine, it's not the case of now in 24, or the same situation. We understand that there might be some changes, political changes in Europe, in the United States, somewhere else. At the same time, we believe that there is a critical mass of political leaders in Europe and also in other countries of the world, who will be with us as long as it's necessary. And we see a lot of declaration about that. So there is no any lack of hope. It's a total belief that we are on the right course. That's all I can say.
I might say that my grandparents from my mother's side are Ukrainian, and they always had this feeling of anti-Russian, and and it has always happened. Even here in Romania, we have this anti-Russian feeling and sentiment that goes on generations to generations. What message would you have to those Ukrainians that might not be right now in Ukraine, but are watching with fear, with anger, what is happening in your country?
We have a lot of Ukrainians outside, first of all, historically, huge diasporas in North America, Canada. Also, we have presence of our old generations in Europe, and a new wave of refugees from Ukraine contributed a lot to the number of Ukrainians outside. We have a huge support from them in terms of the humanitarian support, also with assisting our refugees. I know the most in this part of the population, so I'm in touch with them. There is a big number of men from Ukraine who just left the country at the beginning, or they just happen to be outside of Ukraine, and they're thinking about how to come back or not to come back, because not all of them would like to be mobilized or to be sent to the front. We also almost understand that feelings. For us, it's important to engage these people, to talk to them, communicate to them, and ask them to contribute to victory of Ukraine in this war through all means they can. It's not about coming to Ukraine and fighting, for example. It's just raising some resources to provide for Ukraine. It's taking part in some projects related to defense industry outside of Ukraine, and all other things, and trying to work with the local governments to influence the positions in European capitals and United States. And they do the best. So we have a very strong support from them.
General, can you comment on the effectiveness of Ukraine's military strategy of today? How is the Ukrainian army adapting to new tactics, new technologies that are on the way currently?
Yeah, we learned a lot that we have to be very creative, we have to be very asymmetric, and we should be very hybrid in this war, because we don't have the same resources in manpower like Russia. We didn't have so many equipment Russia had when the invasion started, and we are not the economy like Russia was and even is now. That's why we have to rely upon some creative ideas. And we learned a lot at the beginning how to use new technologies which have never been used in military sphere, and how to use them in a modern warfare to balance the difference in manpower and equipment with Russia, and also to protect the lives of our soldiers. We don't send them like Russia do on manslaughter. So we value everybody. So for us, it's very painful to lose any soldier or officer during this war. We have many wounded and injured because of that. That's why we are looking for any technological solutions to replace people where possible, to not put them at risk, and just to achieve the same purposes of the war with new technological things. We've been forced to introduce a mass deployment of drones, for example, in this war. So we replaced the deficit of our artillery in 23 with a mass production of drones, FPV drones, which provided the similar effect, but with less money in a short period of time. We trained people how to use them. And now one trained good operator of drone, kamikaze type of drone, can play a role of the battalion in this war. So he can keep one battalion in panic because using in the right way the capability he has. And so that's the area we are working on with our defense industry, with our civil society, and most important with our military, because military, they have to use that energy of the society, that ideas, and to shorten all ways to for new technologies to be seen in the front line. Front line for us is end users, so we care about their lives and we care about the effectiveness as well. So that's the only way we can do. Ukraine will win this war with support of our partners and with a technological advantage and superiority in this war. Russia is limited with that because of the nature of their society. They are very centralized, structured, with a limited initiative on the ground, so everything they can do through orders of the system. Yes, they can build up a huge factory of Shahid-type drones somewhere in Tatarstan and to produce them in mass. But they're becoming non-effective because we have a number of solutions how to kill and shoot down most of these drones. At the same time, in Ukraine, in 2024, we have more than 200 small private enterprises concentrated on design and production of drones. And they are very effective, and they adapt and change the designs of these drones every 1 or 2 months, following the results of the performance at the front. Russia can't do that. They can assemble huge masses of something, but they can't change fast the nature and the effectiveness of that system. It's a difference between free society and totalitarian, authoritarian society, and we have to use that advantage together with our partners.
At the beginning of the war, many Romanians were even thinking about leaving the country to find shelter. Because, as you said, momentarily you are fighting for Ukraine, but also for the other parts, the other countries, in order to protect a shelter, a barrier from Russia. Realistically speaking, I would want to ask you if the negotiation will end up in seizing territory. What is the main power that Russia will have even among Romania?
What do you mean power?
The influence that Russia will have, because no longer Ukraine will be a tampon, such a strong tampon between Romania and Russia, of course.
I understand Romanian people from historical perspective. I was a defense attaché here once, so for 2 years, so I learned the history. I communicated a lot with the people. I know the concerns of the people in terms of security and other things. It's most important to have a message here. Of course, it's up to your leadership and up to your people, that if your plan, if you're going to survive as a nation, you have to be strong inside yourself. First of all, you have to accept the situation, then sometimes you could be alone with the threat, some kind of threat. And you should be ready mentally to fight in this situation. You have to prepare where possible for that kind of scenario. And only after that, if you are exhausted with resources and you achieved all possible options to defend yourself, you have to work closely with the partners. So the next, you have to have very strong partners who are ready to support you anytime. I'm not talking about the NATO only. NATO is an organization, of course, under the umbrella of NATO. Sometimes countries become very relaxed. They think that somebody will take care of the security. God knows, one day something could happen, I don't know, I hope not, with readiness of the alliance just to make something in case of invasion of Russia in one of the countries. In this case, there is an Article 3 of the alliance that there is Article 5, but there is an Article 3 of the agreement of NATO agreement that each country has to be ready to protect itself. Each country has to contribute, first of all, to defense capabilities of its own region, and after that to contribute to the joint defense. That's why every country of NATO member country, they have to think now about how they perform Article number 3 of the alliance, how they are ready to fight for their territory with their resources against possible Russian invasion. In Baltic states, they understood it immediately because they were part of the Soviet Union once they understand the mentality. I think the same conversation should be inside politicum in every country of Europe, including Romania. In Ukraine, we are not a member of any alliance. For us, it was not kind of a question of reflections. It was the reality. So we have to fight because we have no choice. And that's it. And when you are ready to fight and you have this energy in society, believe me, it's much more easier to come through this challenge because you're not afraid of the enemy. And for Russia, the most dangerous situation is when their enemy doesn't afraid of them. They are becoming scared in this situation. So, and that's why in Ukraine, our people, they are not thinking about the possible scenarios, what should be after the frozen deals or no deals. They understand they should fight for the future of the children, for the future of the country. And if people accept it from the heart, believe me, you can't do anything with that people.
How did the odds look like for Ukraine to enter NATO? When do you think it might enter NATO?
I think it will be very fast after the conflict. Everybody in Europe understands the value of Ukrainian membership in the alliance because of our experience, our readiness to protect not only our values but the joint values, and the performance of our society and the military is very demonstrative for everybody in Europe that Ukraine deserves to be a very reliable and strong member on the eastern flank of NATO. But after this war, I think we will see very weak Russia, which will not be able for next 10, 20 years to even to think about to invading Ukraine with something. And our mission now is to demonstrate them that forget about the territory of Ukraine. And for next generation, just not even to dream about that. That's our mission, to teach the people there in Russia that this drama they do now because of the Putin decision, and they will pay for the drama with the next generation of some problems. That's it. Other things, if we have a deal with them, some kind of frozen conflict, it's just continuation of the problem for next generation.
The conflict in Ukraine has highlighted vulnerabilities in Europe's energy security. What measures do you propose to ensure sustainable energy independence and, of course, to reduce reliance on Russian resources? Because we know Russia is one of the major suppliances on this. Once it was sanctioned, there have been many weaknesses in Europe regarding the energy sector.
Now, most of the countries, they change the policy with regard to the energy resources. Germany, for example, which were dependent on Russia on many things, now they're totally independent in that. But diversification of resources is number one, so you have to have access to the market to everybody who is ready to provide you with that resources. Then it's about switching from oil and gas related energy resources to greens. It's a solar, even maybe nuclear, wind and others. Also to improve the efficiency of your society with less consumption of the electricity. In Ukraine, we learned a lot from the problem of monopolies. So Ukrainian energy sector was very monopolized by a couple of huge, even private, but at the same time companies. And Russia used that vulnerability. So they targeted the powerful, huge infrastructure object who were generating the energy. In 23, we had a lot of missile attack against this infrastructure. We lost most of the biggest power production units in Ukraine, which belong to that monopolies. After that, we started to diversify our energy generation. It means to create a lot of small, less power generating units dispersed around the country, starting from mobile generators to micro hydro station and others. And we opened the market for others. So we moving now from the monopoly in this area to something more dispersed. It's networking system. And it gives us a more predictable stage now. And next, I see we will be less dependent even against Russian missile attack, because we have a huge number of small generating units which provide electricity to the country on the market conditions.
I would want to touch base on disinformation and propaganda. How is the Ukrainian army combating Russian disinformation and propaganda campaigns? Of course, we see them all over the world, but I can imagine only at most targeting Ukrainian army in order to make them weaker. What strategies are being implemented to protect the civilian population and, of course, to maintain morale in the face of intensified informational wars?
We learned a lot about this from 2014, when the Russia first annexed Crimea, and they used a lot of information campaign, trying to confuse the people, trying to present the actions like legitimate. And so we learned from that first. So most important for people to have enough information alternative to what Russia is trying to deliver to us. It means you have to have open society. It's a challenge. It's a challenge during the war to tell people what is going on, to provide some details, which is in normal wartime period not allowed. At the same time, we, fortunately, society totally understand that Russia is using a lot of information attack tricks against us. So there is a kind of vaccination already in Ukraine on this regard. Immunity. Immunity, yes, immunity. So most of the people there can differ what is in reality and where is Russian propaganda or not. It's more challenge for European countries who live on the normal, comfortable life, and they are limited with some kind of alternative resources from Russia. And Russia has a lot of presence in Europe from information point of view. Of course, not like before invasion, through Russia Today or like that, but through social media, with a lot of, we call them trolls. Trolls is a factory in Russia. We have a factory of trolls in Romania too. Apparently, yeah, so there have been. It's a very modern, fashionable approach. So we know how to tackle that in Ukraine, but here each country has to do it with their own resources and their own ideas. Yeah, we have to accept it that there is Russia propaganda everywhere. It's the only way they can try to change the minds of people here, trying to influence the political elections and other things. And people have to be immune, not immediately, but step by step from that kind of threat. There is no other choice.
General, as I mentioned before, next Sunday we will have the first presidential elections in Romania, the first stance of the two-stance presidential elections. One of the candidates that we have here, his name is George Simion. You might have heard of him. He's banned from Ukraine and from the Republic of Moldova because he had this propaganda and has met, apparently, nothing is proven yet, with Russian agents. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the danger for Romania of having maybe, possibly, such a president? Because he is quite high in at stakes at the moment.
Well, first of all, it's up to you to decide who is going to be the president, up to the people of Romania to see who is who.
But given your experience confronting Russia, what is the exposed threat that we might have if such a president, if it is true that he met with Russia?
In Ukraine, if you have, as a politician or person who is going to be a political leader, if you have any connections with Russia in terms of the meetings, open or undercover, any kind of email communication, you are becoming just a red line for everybody.
A red light.
So you're a loser immediately. So it was not possible maybe 3-4 years ago. It was acceptable. You have some connections because some change of ideas, something. Now, if you have some kind of contact with Russian, not the citizen, but not only with citizen, but somebody who is related to the FSB or government or Russian military, GRU, all these guys, you become a victim of everything, and people know that. So it should be very tough to everybody who is confirmed is in touch with the enemy. For us, they are enemy. For you, there are possible potential enemies, so it's up for you to decide.
Also, regardless of the current conflict, of the outcome of the current conflict, how do you envision the future relationship Ukraine will have with Russia? Do you think that there might be prospects of reconciliation in the future in maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 years? Or do you think that it's just a path destined for conflict?
Sooner or later, after any war, there will be a kind of transition period, it is historically proven. For Russia, there is a challenge in terms that in Ukraine, the young generation, which is at war now, not only young guys who are in army, but also children who are experiencing everyday air raids, sounds of alarm, explosion sounds. This generation, they will remember for the next minimum 20 years all these feelings, and they will teach their children about that. So starting from 2014 even, I think, Russia is enemy of Ukraine in the minds of most of the Ukrainian population. It's a tragedy for Russian people, first of all, because there are many connections between families in Russia and Ukraine, because of the parents, because of the history and other things. And they become the hostage of this. And so for next 20 years at minimum, it's half generation, we will see very cold, cool relationship between Russia and Ukraine, with regardless of what are the even changes in Russia, even with the transformation of Russian society, with some kind of, God knows what, democratic miracles or something like that. No way there is a psychological thing related to the memory, related to the suffering, related to the adrenaline, which could be replaced with any deals. So that's it for the long-standing relationship between Ukraine and Russia historically. And Russia just put the end to that by the act in 2022.
How does your agenda look like in the next months in terms of negotiations, in terms of new partners? As we mentioned before, Donald Trump will start his presidency on the 10th of January towards the 20th. What is your agenda planned? Will you go to Washington, D.C. to have a talk with Donald Trump, with other allies?
First of all, our leadership will communicate, I think, on a regular basis with the new team in Washington, D.C. And our president, of course, he will be in touch with Trump on a regular basis to brief him, to explain him where is the devil. And devil is in details. Because Trump needs to understand a lot of background things which he never paid attention to because he was busy with something else. I'm not thinking he will change his mind in general, but for him some details will mean a lot. That's one. We'll see what is the concept, what is the vision of him and his team in terms of the conflict, what his plan. And there will be a number of conversations with Ukraine on this regard. I don't think they will go to Moscow without consultation with the position of Ukraine. Of course, we will see some kind of engagement of Trump with Putin, as minimum attempts to engage and convince Putin that he has to find some kind of consensus or like that in this war, given the position of Ukraine. But he will immediately face the problem with the personality of Putin, because Putin is just in a dead end. He doesn't know other exit except for kind of victory, and it will take time. It will take time. How long? I don't think very long, because Trump doesn't like delayed it.
Do you think that next year we might have a resolution?
Not a resolution, but we'll see. As a minimum, we'll see a lot of dynamics. So a lot of bilateral things in Europe, Ukraine, United States with some maybe with Russian leadership. China will be involved, of course, inevitably. India will be involved in the.
We spoke to the Republican representative overseas, and he said that Donald Trump is planning in March to meet with Vladimir Putin. So in March, in several months, we might have a first discussion between Donald Trump and...
We'll see. Nevertheless, the next 2-3 months is about the formulating of the United States strategy, how to stop this conflict. Now they just, the president announced his desire to stop it. He formulated some ideas, but we will see the final vision maybe in 2 months. And I know that because the Republicans, they express the vision just about Ukraine. They say that before the election, they told that they will concentrate on this plan immediately after the results of the elections. Now they are working on that. And this process will be accelerated after appointments of the key decision makers in the National Security Council, defense sector, and the national intelligence community. So we see now the first wave of appointees is in this area. So it means that in 1 month they will be ready to start some kind of joint discussion and reflections on this. So I would advise now not to keep close to your heart any kind of declarations or short messages from United States. We should wait for 1 or 2 months, and we will see more consolidated view and understanding about the end of this conflict from United States perspective.
General, thank you very much for your time. Our interview is over. We will see each other next week with a new interview.